Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Powmore and here is the kiln room. And if we have a look at the notice here, it says do not enter. This is not where students are allowed to go, but I'm going to show you in the video. So let's open the door and have a bit of a look around. So inside the kiln room is the kiln. And this is our kiln here, and you can see that Miss Henkel and I have put all of your birds on these shelves, and we had to build these shelves. And you can see, if I come in a little bit closer, they have these called props which are holding up these shelves, so we can build these shelves. So if you wanted to, you could make something really big out of clay that would fit in here, because you can take all the shelves out. Now, it's very important that the clay is close together so we can fit lots in, but they're not touching each other. And these guys are going to sit in here. Now, it's interesting because we put some of these in here earlier, so you can see the whiter color of the clay. If I go down here, you can see these ones are still looking a little bit wet. So that means that there's still got water in them that's drying out, and then they will go this lighter colour, and then they'll be ready for the kiln to go on. So that takes about 2 weeks. So we're going to wait for these to dry out for 2 weeks, and then we're going to shut the door on the kiln. Now in the kiln, I'll show you on the door because it's easy, there are these springs type things here. And they're the bit that goes really, really hot, goes to over 1,000 degrees, which is much, much hotter than your oven at home. And they heat up, and that's what cooks your birds so they go hard. And this is a special type of brick that keeps the heat inside the kiln so that it doesn't cause any fires or make the room too hot. There's also a very special piece over here. If I hop in the kiln, can you see that little bit sticking out here? That is the temperature cone, and that's very important because that tells us how hot the kiln is getting, and when it reaches the top temperature, the control panel over here gets turned on. So I'm going to turn this on, and you can see that it tells us, it's going to tell us how it's 18 degrees in the kiln at the moment. So when that gets up to over 1,000 degrees, that little cone in the kiln will tell us that it's 1,000 degrees, and it'll switch off and it'll start cooling down slowly. Now it has to go up slowly so that you don't get any cracks. If things get too hot too quickly, they'll crack. And again, when they cool down too quickly, they get cracks. So this will take about 24 hours before we can open back up and see what it'll look like when they're all fired. Now at the moment, clay that has not been fired is quite delicate and crumbly, whereas when it's been fired, it's a lot harder. And then they'll be ready to paint. I'm just going to shut the door of the kiln. We make sure that we tighten these righty tight. They're nice and tight. Another safety thing we do is turn the fan on, and when we turn this fan on, all of the fumes and hot air go up through that vent and go out the back of the school. So it goes outside and takes all the fumes out. We make sure that the door is locked so that no one can accidentally come in here. There's also, when I open up the kiln and it's cool enough, I have these big gloves that are really thick and padded just in case there's any heat on the kiln. So there's some really big gloves here, and we need to make sure that we look after our safety in here. We can always check the temperature on here from the door because you can see it through the glass in the door. We've also got all our safety sheets here that remind us about everything we need to do to use the kiln safely. So it's perfectly fine if you know what you're doing. And then you can see that I can see the classroom back out here, and we need to make sure that that door stays locked and no one comes in until the kiln is cool enough, including me and Miss Henkel. Okay, I can't wait to see what your birds look like when we paint them.